Hi, and welcome back to the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Today, I'll be sharing with you course 10, and this is class 9. This is the class on awareness. We've entered the fourth chapter, which is the chapter on carefulness. And this is the chapter where we get to understand what the medicine is for this illness that we have. And the illness is our mental afflictions. In this class, we start to learn the antidote to that illness. So it's a really exciting class for me anyway. I think that really I am so excited to be able to teach this class because it's something that I really need. I really need to learn how to stop my mental afflictions, how to be aware of them, and what to do about them when I have them. So this class is going to focus on our awareness. And that's why I have this picture of Gracie. She's my daughter's border collie. She belongs to Adam and Katie, and we've had her for at least 12 years. I can't remember, but she's truly a part of all of our families, all of our families. She goes from house to house and really entertains us. But why I have her on there is I've never seen any other being focus the way Gracie can focus. She likes to catch balls, to chase after them, catch them, bring them back to you. She likes to gather sticks and bring them back to you for us to throw to her. So if she's in my house and she sees a ball on a shelf and she can't reach it, she'll sit there and stare at that ball, willing it to come to her until someone does throw it to her. It could be a half hour and she'll just stay focused on that ball. And why I'm talking about focus is because we actually need two states of mind so that we can conquer our mental afflictions, so we can destroy our enemy. And it's called, I forgot, Sheshin and Drempa. I'm not sure I pronounced them exactly correct, but they're focusing, it's our attention and where it is and what we're focused on, the object. And then the recollection part is bringing our mind back to the object when we lose our Sheshin. But before we get into that, the detailed definitions of those, I want to share with you a verse by Master Shantideva. Okay? And this is the goal. This is our goal. This is what we want to achieve. So I'll read this to you. When I read it, it's called a loom. It sets a seed in your mind that will help you to gain this perspective so that you can do it and to believe that you can do it. So suppose a person reaches a point where they're able to keep their recollection. It's very solid, where they are able to use their mind to protect. At this point, it will lead to awareness. And even should these two disappear, they nonetheless will return. And what this means is if we set our state of mind on Sheshin and Drimpa, awareness and recollection, that if we create that as a habit, that even when our mind falls off the goal of these courses, which is to develop our bodhicitta so that we can become a bodhisattva, see emptiness directly, imbued with the bodhicitta, and become a Buddha, even if we forget our goal for a moment, because we've made this a habit, these two states of mind, we'll be able to, it'll come back to us in a moment. That's what this verse implies. So it's really an exciting, it's like we're setting a goal. We're setting a goal for this class, but not just for this class, for the rest of our lives, on how to use these antidotes to getting rid of our mental afflictions. So let's move to these definitions. Sheshin is the Tibetan word for awareness, being aware of where our thoughts are. And in our past classes, I've talked about having a bodyguard that stays in our mind to protect us. It's a bodyguard that as soon as we fall off the object of our goal, which is developing our bodhicitta, then Sheshin rings an alarm, and then that alarm goes off and that brings up Drimpa, which is remembering that we want bodhicittas. So we have to act like a bodhisattva. We want to become a bodhisattva, so we have to have bodhicitta. So we remember that we're supposed to take a different action. And maybe that's like wearing a shock collar and the Drimpa, if we're not bringing our mind back to our goal, to the object of what we want to achieve. Maybe we get a little buzz, and if we still don't do it, we get a little jolt of electricity, which will remind us to not follow that mental affliction, but to do the opposite, to rely on the antidote. So again, those two states of mind that we need to have in order to eliminate, to vanquish our enemy are Sheishin and Drimpa. The awareness of where our mind is, what we're thinking about, what we're looking at, the thoughts that we're having as they arise, and how we're going to react to them. And how we're going to react to them is Drimpa's job. Recalling that we don't want to replant the bad seed. So these two, they're a big antidote to our success in reaching our goals. So the next thing we want to talk about is we want to think about what it is that can help us recall our goals. And that is remembering the three jewels. So what are these three jewels? It's different than you think. It's not just the Buddha, it's the emptiness of the three jewels that protects us. That's their biggest antidote, is remembering emptiness. So here we go with the first of those three jewels, which is the Buddha jewel. And it's not just this person Buddha, or it's not just the teacher. It's this emptiness of the teacher that protects us, the emptiness that the Buddha has, and the same emptiness within us. If we didn't have emptiness, we'd be an unchanging object. Alix talked a little bit about this in her last class, about we would always be constantly the same, unchanging. We would all see me in the same way. I would be unchanging, and everyone who walked in the room with me would perceive me in exactly the same way. And if we were looking at a pen, every being who looked at this object would see a pen, and they would be able to write with it. But we know that's not the case, because when a dog walks into a room, they're not going to use the pen to write a letter. They'll probably chew on it and get ink everywhere. So that's the meaning of the Buddha jewel. It's the emptiness that we have inside of us that's the same as a Buddha's emptiness. It's something that allows us to change. And what it allows us to change is when a seed ripens, a negative seed ripens from something that we've done in the past, that we can react differently to how that seed, what that seed would normally cause us to do. Like if we planted a negative seed and we're getting a negative reaction, result, respond to that negativity in the same way. We have the ability to plant a new seed, a seed that will bring us to our goal of being an enlightened being who can help all beings. And that's how the Buddha jewel can protect us. And the Dharma jewel, the teachings that we're learning, they're empty too. Really, what it is to understand that all these teachings are bringing us to the point where we understand emptiness. We have this deep understanding of emptiness, and it stays with us all the time. It's in our Sheishin and Drimpa. It's the object that we understand is in all of us. And if we remember that we're empty, that yelling person came from what we did in the past, and they're empty of anything but our projection being forced upon us by what we did in the past. And it's projected now onto this blank screen of the movie of our world and my reality, then we'll react differently to plant something different and new, something that's going to help us reach our goal. And that's what the Dharma jewel is. And then we come to the Sangha jewel, and it's different than just the people around us. It is all the people around us, but it's remembering that the people that this really applies to are the ones amongst us who have seen emptiness directly, and how they can inspire us. They can inspire us to remember our own emptiness, remember that the things we're experiencing are empty of not having come from us. So that's how the three jewels protect us. by helping us to recall that we're empty and that the things that we're experiencing, we planted. And if we remember that we planted it, it's coming from us, it's less likely that we'll have anger in our future. You know, I've done some stuff like I left the tea kettle on and it started to all the water evaporated and the pan got all black. And I would have been very angry if it had been someone else, but I was very forgiving because it was myself. So I didn't get so mad. But if we can apply that same thing to everyone, because they are coming from our seeds, then we can plant the seeds to reach all of our goals. And I think that's pretty exciting. I know I get excited when I think about it. I have the option to become something new, something different. So when we have this consistently in our mind, how we behave and how we think about Sheishin and Drimpa, we're actually dwelling on the antidote that will protect us, that'll bring us to doing something good, to help us to stop from hurting others. Remembering that we're wanting to become someone who is imbued with bodhicitta, so that we can be that person who doesn't own their own time anymore, that we're dedicating everything we do to helping others. That's our goal. And when we think about these antidote of emptiness, it sets us on this path that we can help somebody else. And I get pretty excited about that. And it helps me to bring my mind back to my goal. I hope it does you too. So the next step we want to think about is there are 3 times when we don't have to abide by keeping all these rules, you know, where we can let down our guard. We can drop our Sheishin and Drimpa just temporarily. And one of those times is we might have an opportunity where, well, it's not an opportunity. That's why I put this scary pumpkin up there. We can act differently sometimes when our life is threatened. We don't worry at that moment about like, what's my behavior like? We just know that we have this human body and it's being threatened, or we have the seeds to see it as being threatened. Right then, we just have to think, what do I need to do to protect myself? But we still keep a little bit of our recollection that this threat is coming from our seeds. We want to not allow it to harm us, but we disarm that person or the threat without hating it, because we realize it's coming from a seed that we planted. So we can let up a little bit on our watching where our mind goes and just get into reaction mode. But our reaction comes from love. So we still have some of it, but we protect ourselves because this is the vehicle that can take us to full and total enlightenment. And the next place where we can let down our hair a little bit is when we're doing some things that benefit all beings. You know, like I like to think, you know, we can celebrate and just not go wild, but just get in the mood of the moment, you know, like you're there and you're happy that you've done something good that's going to help all beings and everyone's celebrating. And maybe you can, if you can just step out of your normal box of, you know, being very careful of where my mind is and just go with the crowd. Sometimes maybe it's laughing or, you know, telling jokes or dancing or doing things that other people wouldn't think you would normally do. It's sort of like what Alix talked about in the last one. You know, people might think you're a very reserved person who is so serious all the time, focusing only on planting good seeds. Well, we're planting good seeds, but you know, in a strict behavior that we don't do anything out of the ordinary. Well, in this case, when we're celebrating, maybe we'll just do something a little funny or be a little silly and not just think that we're going to think always of Sheishin and Drimpa. We're just acting with the crowd. And also it's the celebrating with the offering of the 3 jewels. Maybe at that point, what we're celebrating is we've done something good, but we want to fit in with the crowd. You know, we've done something good, and maybe some of the other people that have helped with celebrating this offering, they're not quite at the level that you might be at, and you can have normal conversation with them. Maybe they're there and they're really excited about the football game they saw last week, and that's what they want to share with you at this time. you can kind of morph into a conversation where you can do shop talk, bar talk. If you're at the bar, maybe you're at the bar because you don't have any place to go and it's raining and you have to get out of the cold. You can fit in with the crowd just by listening to their conversation and joining in, but always with part of your mind still focused on your goal. But you want to fit in so that you can make others comfortable. So that's sometimes when you can let go of the tight hold of Sheishin and Drenpa, the tight goal of awareness and remembering your goal. You're still there, but you're blending in with the crowd so you can make them comfortable without planting bad seeds. Okay, so that brings us to the next slide, which is, why are the 6 perfections in the order that they are? And I think of it as a puzzle. You have to think about, why are they in this order? Like, why is it? Well, they go from the most powerful to the most powerful, the power grows with each step. And what this does is it's this, once we've practiced one and get it to our perfection, we move to the next one. So the order that we do things in is really important. When we have this order, when we perfect the gift, the perfection of giving, what it does is it helps us get out of this grasping for things, this attachment to things. And because we've gotten out of this, this practice of giving things away, it's actually allowed us to move to the next perfection, the perfection of doing ethical things, because we're no longer attached to things. We're able to let go of things and we're not concerned with possessing them. So it leads directly into the ability to do the right thing, have an ethical life, because we know how to let go of things. So when we have an ethical life, we're always thinking about what we can do that's going to plant good seeds and what we need to stop doing that'll plant bad seeds. And like Alix mentioned in her last talk, what we do every day is mostly, 66% negative and 33% good, just because sometimes we don't know what to do. But in this, when we're really working on becoming more and more ethical or trying to do the right thing, we're stopping ourselves from doing the wrong thing. And because we're aware of that and really practicing, this restraint leads us into the ability to have more patience with ourselves, patience because we're on a path, because we're not perfect yet. So we're still striving, we're still working at perfection. So we have to be patient with ourselves. And when we're developing our patience, it's a tough practice. I know that throughout the day, I can get irritated pretty easily. There's a lot of things that irritate me, and it's a struggle to remain patient. But I have to say, if it's worked for me, it can work for you. I know that I'm a lot more patient than I used to be. And I can laugh when I start to get impatient. I just it's like I remember emptiness. I bring it into mind. I think of the refuge that I took in the 3 jewels, the emptiness of my own mind, and that because it's empty, I can change. And because of what I do in this practice of developing my patience, I'm planting more seeds to be patient in the future. And really, I find that I'm laughing a lot more because I can laugh at myself so much more frequently. And it makes me just have so much joy when I can laugh at myself, because it is funny. There's nothing to be angry at anymore. It's more humorous than it is something to be angry at. So because of this hardship of getting used to being patient with others and with myself, it allows me to have more joy. So it just flows right into this joyful effort that I can do things with more joy, even when I make mistakes. Like, I made a lot of mistakes yesterday, but am I angry at that, or am I disappointed? Well, I'd like to do better, but I remind myself that I'm in this class, I'm on this path because I'm a work in progress. I'm doing a practice that will help me reach my goal. And what is my goal? Well, we've gone through this time and time again. My goal is to start planting good seeds, more good seeds than I do bad seeds, and that the good seeds will be the seeds that I water so that I'll have the capacity to see emptiness directly and move on up the path to becoming a person who can really help all beings. So the more joy I have, of course, it's going to help me move into the next phase because I focused on joy in my life. It'll help me have better meditative concentration. If I focused on joy, then I'll be able better to focus on the object of my meditation. And why do we want to have this big focus on meditation or meditation object? Because we want to reach our goal, and because meditation is the platform or the foundation that we need to see emptiness directly. If we can't stay focused on a good object, an object that's going to lift us up, then we're not, for at least 20 minutes or longer, an hour at best, then we won't be able to have the platform that we can see emptiness directly. And that is wisdom. That's the next phase of our growth. We really need to develop our meditation practice so that we can have the ability to see emptiness, because emptiness is what protects us from our mental affliction and defeats them. And we've identified that the mental afflictions are our enemy and that we should never make friends with them. We've identified 6 primary and 5 more in the 6th primary mental afflictions that harm us, and then 20 secondary mental afflictions. And then there's actually even more than that. There's 84,000 mental afflictions or different varieties of them that can really stop us from reaching our goal. But the primary and secondary ones are the ones that we really need to focus on so that we can clear them out, not make friends with them, and eliminate them. Alix did something, a really cool talk. She talked about like this mental affliction and where do they go when you've eliminated them, that they have no place to go. They're not part of our sense objects. So what happens to them? Well, when we stop planting the seeds to have them, they just don't exist anymore because we don't have the seeds for them. And I really thought about that, and it really moved me. It just inspires me to really work on eliminating all of them so that I no longer even have these seeds, that there's nothing for that. There's no more ripening of these mental afflictions. And that's the importance of this order of these 6 perfections, that we do things in a certain order and we stick to it until we've reached the goal of the perfection of giving. And then once we've reached the goal of the perfection of giving, then we move on to the next one of living ethically, and we work at it until we perfect it, and on and on. It's right now to inspire ourselves today to set a goal for ourselves. What's your goal for today? I think it would be a nice time right now in this talk to just close our eyes and think what we can work on today that will help us start planting seeds to attain our goals. Well, if we're working on the perfection of giving, what can we work on sharing today that will help us perfect our practice of giving? So let's just take a moment and think about what we could do and plan to do that for the rest of the day. So just close your eyes just for a moment. All right. I hope you've set some goal for yourself. I set one for myself, and I decided that today on working on my perfection of giving, that what I would give today is more attention to other people, to notice what they might need. Just noticing the people around me, and I might not be able to help them, but maybe I can just recognize what it is they might need, and maybe just offer a kind word, or just giving them some recognition that I've noticed them. And that's what I'm going to work on today. So I hope you've set some goal for yourself today. So the next thing we'll work on is when we should freeze like a bump on a log. So if we keep ignorance in mind, we'll want to, when things come up, when a mental affliction comes up, something that we might want to react to, what would we do instead? When we move into, I put everything on one slide. It's a lot, and there's a lot more than this, but these are just some, and I won't touch on all of them. You can take a picture of the slide, or in your reading, it's all in the reading. You can go through it. But for the benefit of this talk, I'm just going to go over a few of them. Like when you start into ignorant liking or ignorant disliking, you might ask yourself, where is this coming from? You might just freeze in that moment because you don't want to plant a bad seed. And that's where emptiness comes in. It's like most of you have heard of the Sutra of the Two Husbands in the Kitchen. Geshe Michael developed this really wonderful sutra based on dependent origination. Where did the thought for me to like or dislike thing come from? And it comes from a seed that we planted in the past. So if we think of the emptiness of it, that it's empty of not coming from a projection forced upon me by what I did in the past, then I'm not going to want to replant it. So I'll just freeze like a bump on a log. I freeze. And when I freeze, it gives my mind a time to bring up Sheishin and Drimpa, my awareness of where this problem came from, and then the Drimpa to remember my goal, to bring up where I want to go on this path. And then I won't replant it. I won't replant ignorant liking or disliking with another bad seed to see more of it in the future. And the same thing when I start to detect anger, and that happens for me pretty often. I bet, I shouldn't say this. I was going to say, I bet it happens for you in traffic too, because I don't know who you are. You might be perfect angels, and you might be that person helping me to ripen my bad karma. I get a ripening result. Somebody cuts me off in traffic, and it's a ripening result of something I did in the past. Well, if I freeze like a bump on a log, I still have my awareness that I'm driving. I'm not going to get in a wreck, but I don't need to go up and think that guy, I don't need to go up and act in the same way that the other driver is. I can stop it. I can bring up my awareness and my recollection to not replant the bad seed. Or even when we start to feel praise, this is another one that I have a habit of. I love to talk about the good things I've done or the good things I've accomplished, and never allow someone else to share what they've done. So once in a while, I'll be able to recall that I'm bragging instead of, appreciating healthy self-esteem. I'm just bragging. So I want to bring that in and stop. Stop and freeze like a bump on a log. Just stop and maybe hear what's the good someone else did. Because if I really pay attention, like my goal today is, when someone else has something good that they want to share, and I hear it and I'm happy about it, I get 10% of those seeds. So why not just freeze like a bump on a log and allow someone else to be happy about what they've done and let them share it with us? And also, the other thing that we often do when we feel all puffed up and want to praise ourselves, sometimes we're praising ourselves so we can make ourselves look bigger and better than other people, sort of a putting them down, like they're not so good after all. So we don't want to behave that way. That's not what we want to do. And that's another opportunity to stop. Or, maybe we feel like our wrong belief is the best wrong belief, and we want to fight or argue about it. Maybe we can just stop and think about where that's stuff comes from and where that's going to take us if we follow that thought, how it's going to hurt us in the future. And this fits in with my goal today, too. When we start to neglect the needs of others and we only want to work for our own needs. So I set a goal today that I want to at least notice the needs of others so that I can think about how I can help them and then develop better seeds so that I can help them in the future and not just think about what I need. That's a lifetime habit, thinking about what I need. And I'd like to stop that because when we think about what others need, it's like doing the 4 steps that Alix mentioned in her last talk and that we have learned through all of our courses, the 4 steps. It's based on the 4 laws of karma, like makes like. And when you do plant a seed, it's going to grow. So if we want to change this activity of working just for our own needs and working for others' needs, we're actually planting seeds to get what we want by helping others get what they want. And when we do that and help them get it, it plants a seed that's going to grow. And if we water those seeds, it's going to ripen and we get the results. So even if it starts out as a negative thing that we're working to change to a positive thing, we're going to get what we want. Or let's say when we have this urge to just talk needlessly. I know when I get nervous or something, I start to chatter about stupid stuff. And really, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't really hurt anybody. But we could take that time to either just be silent and listen to others, or to at least have something meaningful for them to share with them. It could just be a nice compliment, something different than what we might normally have done. And last, this is a big one. When we lose courage, that's when we should freeze like a bump on a log. When we think, I can't do this, we have doubt in this path. We don't believe that it's going to make a difference. Just freeze on like a bump on a log. Think about karma and its consequences. And if you haven't decided for yourself that that's a true way of life, freeze like a bump on a log. Use your logic and your intellect to work it out for yourself. Does what I do today plant a seed that will ripen into a different future for me, a future different from what I'm experiencing today? How can I prove to myself that karma, that what I do creates a result? And that if I do something different today, I'm planting the seeds for a better future. Just work that out for yourself and have the courage to work for the benefit of others. Think of the 4 steps, prove it to yourself. If I really think of the needs of others and help them get it, will I plant seeds that result in them ripening for that person and for myself, that we both get what we want? Work it out for yourself. Does it work that way? So it might just be keeping my body from going into the wrong direction and doing the wrong thing, and stopping my speech from saying something that will hurt someone, and I can say something that will help someone instead. So I can concentrate more on the antidotes, that I'm empty, and because I'm empty, I can plant seeds to become someone who's different, become someone who truly can help other people. So have courage, take courage. We are growing, we are on a path, and this is a practice. And practice, as they say, makes perfect. So that brought me to the next slide. What do we do with our eyes? And it relates to the same thing as when do we act like a bump on a log? We freeze and we act like a bump on a log. So what do we do with our eyes? Well, this comes from our homework, these answers, but what do they mean? Well, there's general advice on how we look with our eyes. What's our motivation? What do we want to see? So when they say, what do you do with tired eyes? I took notes on this because it was a little bit difficult for me to understand at first. Like I thought, Why can't I just look around and observe things and have gratitude for them? Well, I do that. So maybe that's what I do with my eyes. But what the advice is if we're always watching and doing things, our eyes are going to get tired. So what do we do with tired eyes? If we're always focused on awareness and we're looking down all the time and we get tired, we need to refresh our eyes. I'm looking down because that's what it says to do if we're really focused on our Sheishin and Drenpa. Well, maybe when our eyes are tired, we do need to look at the sky. We need to refresh our eyes by looking at something beautiful, maybe seeing birds fly by or something really pretty or something nice. So we refresh our eyes by looking at something different, maybe the scenery around us. And then next, what do we do when we meet other people? Okay, so the advice was generally to avoid looking at things that might create harm in us. We keep our eyes down. But then we're walking and we run into other people. If we ignored them, it might be a bad karma. They might, they're going to think something about us. And with our shame and recollection, I mean, we care about what other people think and we don't want them to be hurt by our actions. We look up and we greet them. So when we greet a person, we just say, hey, how's it going? And then we can go about our business. So that's what we do when we meet other people. We don't just stay looking down and ignore them. We acknowledge them. And finally, what do we do after we've rested our eyes? We've looked up at the sky. We've met other people. Well, now we've rested our eyes. We've met people. What do? We actually look around to see if there's any risk. Is there something that might hurt us if we don't pay attention to it? If we're always so focused on our Sheishin and our Drenpa, recalling our goal, bringing our mind back to our goal and noticing when we've fallen off our goal, what if there's some danger around us? We also want to be aware of that. So after we've rested and we've refreshed ourselves, we look around to see if there's any risk. Is there any risk that we need to avoid? And then we go about our day. So it's important to pay attention to what we do with our eyes. Maybe we look at something completely different and we see it differently. It's an interesting topic. But Geshe Michael, on his talk, he was talking about like when he lives in New York City, walking on the sidewalks. There's a lot of distractions, and I can think about this. Let's just say I'm a female, I'm walking through New York City, or I like to think of Las Vegas because I haven't spent much time in New York City. I've been to Las Vegas a few times. I used to go out there for apparel shows, big markets where I could buy for my stores. And I one time went down to Old Town Las Vegas. And in Old Town Las Vegas, it is crazy. And you do maybe want to walk with your eyes down like this because you'll see some really interesting stuff. You'll see partially nude people, mostly almost nude people, walking around, just walking around, and you can get stories going in your mind like, what are they doing? What are they selling? So you might want to walk with your eyes down. But to avoid tripping or hitting your head on something, maybe you need to look up once in a while. And I did that. Well, I saw a lot of near nude people in Las Vegas and Old Town, but I also saw the opportunity to, I forgot what it's called, use rip lines. I think it's called that, where you can fly across the city. So I actually went up on one of those where I went up four stories, and I was able to get in the Superman position and fly over the streets of lower Las Vegas. So I felt like I was a superhero, looking to see if there was anybody who needed some help. So that's what I was doing with my eyes. First, I was looking down to avoid the nudity and maybe some sexual misconduct and stuff I didn't need to get engaged in. But then I had the opportunity to go, Alix, do you know the name of that when you fly over?
I think it's called a zip line.
A zip line, yeah. So I took a zip line over the city of Las Vegas. And I pretended like I was a superhero looking to see how I could help people. So that was really cool. So I did something different with my eyes, and I did something different with my motivation. So it's all there. We can use everything that we meet with to plant good seeds or bad seeds. We always have the choice, and that's where our emptiness comes in. What do we want to put on our blank screen? Do we want to put a good seed or a bad seed? So we can recall our recollection to remember that things are empty. We can bring in our Shishin, our personal bodyguard, to let us know when we've wandered off our target, wandered off our goal, and plant a different seed. So this is a verse that Master Shanti Deva wrote, and it's towards the end of this reading for this class, and I think it covers it pretty well. I should in this way check myself for thoughts filled with mental afflictions, or those thoughts where I want to make some kind of meaningless efforts. Whenever they do come, I should act like a warrior, use the antidotes to keep my mind firm and steady. For me, that was flying over the streets of Las Vegas and deciding that I was going to be someone who wanted to look for other people that needed help and try to help them. So, what can we do differently? I have a list of them, things that we can do differently, where we can put our mind. So, I made a list so that I wouldn't forget them. So, our mind is powerful. It's very powerful, and it's like a wild elephant. It's in a meditation chart that it's from the third level, where this elephant is wild and it can stampede and break and crash fences. If it's not tamed, it can do all that. It can tromp your crops that you've just planted down and smash it to the ground. It can trample even your homes. They're so big and powerful, and our mind is like that. So if we want to rein it in, we'll remember our goal, and we'll remember that we can achieve our goal if we keep it in our mind. And the next time is, there could be times when I want to surrender my attention completely to what I want to do for the day. Like I want to surrender my mind today to noticing, at least recognizing other people, acknowledging them, and maybe noticing that they might have some need. Like it could be, oh, that person have their arms full of stuff. I want to open the door and help them get in. Or, maybe that's a really heavy load. Maybe I should help them carry that load in. Just paying attention to the needs of others and really focusing on that for today to plant the seeds to perfect my perfection of giving my time and my attention. Or let's see, I could be in situations where, I walk the dogs and I do it a couple times a day. So maybe when I'm walking the dogs, I can be really aware of the environment around me. So what I've been doing lately when I walk the dogs, I go in different places and I pick up trash because I want to clean up my environment. I might notice the needs of the environment and pay attention to what my environment needs. Sometimes when I'm at home in Durango, I really pay attention to my environment. I take my dog and I take a shovel, and we have this invasive thistle down there. And I actually love going out and chopping this thistle. It just arrived a couple of years ago because the city brought in a load of dirt that had a lot of the seed for this invasive species of weed. And so now I've made it my job to eradicate it by chopping it out. And as I chop it out, I imagine it's a mental affliction and I'm getting rid of it. So it's another way to protect my environment, just having an awareness and keeping it with me, changing my mind from focusing just on myself, but focusing on my environment, focusing on other people. Where should I put my mind today? And maybe what it means is before saying something, I'll pause and I think, will this be helpful? Will it help someone? Or is it just garbage that nobody needs to hear? Is it paying attention to things when I'm at the store and I'm in the checkout line? Where do my eyes go? Do I notice other people and think of ways I can help them, or do I just stop and read the headlines on the magazines about stuff that really means nothing and can't help anybody? So this is a class that gives us the opportunity to focus on where our mind goes and how we can call it back to our goal, our Sheishin and our Drenpa, our awareness and our recollection, being aware of where our thoughts are and pulling it back to our goal so that we can remember when things come up to plant the seeds that will plant virtue instead of more negative mental afflictions. And that's how we can start battling our mental afflictions. We can eradicate them one at a time, growing our strength by following the 6 perfections one at a time. They come in a certain order, and we work on each one until we perfect it, and then move on to the next, and then move on to the next and the next. We follow a path, and then if we continue to follow that path as laid out clearly before us, we can reach the end of our goal and be free of our mental afflictions, removing the obstacles, the blockers to reaching our nirvana, removing the obstacles to our omniscience so that we can know truly what others need to do and what we need to do to get to that goal and to doing it. So thank you for tuning in today. And I'm really grateful that you've decided to take this class. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share it with you because I've planted some good seeds in myself to remember my goal and to have it constantly in my mind. So in the next class, Alix is going to teach us more about the 6 perfections. So I'll look forward to that, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in that class. Thanks for listening.